My sister broke the only rule I had, nearly endangering my family, then later appeared at dinner with a glass of wine. When I asked why she couldn't stop, she replied, "He's still breathing, isn't he?" That was 10 months ago. Today, she's screaming my name through the Ring camera, pleading for me to stop. My sister and I have always had a distant but civil relationship. We rarely spoke, never fought, and didn't share clothes, talk about relationships, or do anything together. Whenever it was just the two of us, the silence was awkward but mutual. That changed when she turned 21. From her first drink onward, everything shifted. Her drinking moved from occasional to constant. Watching her spiral deeper into it was painful, but even worse was when she tried pulling me into her habits. I've never liked alcohol and avoided it, but she bullied and pressured me to drink. On her 22nd birthday, she handed me a bottle of water that turned out to be pure vodka. When I spat it out coughing, she filmed my reaction and laughed. After that, I gave her one last chance. I told her if she tried to involve me again, I'd cut her off. A month later, she and her boyfriend invited me to celebrate their anniversary. She promised she wouldn't pressure me to drink. She lied. All night, she handed me diluted drinks without telling me they contained alcohol. Vodka, whiskey, rum. After my third drink, I felt lightheaded and confused. It was my first time intoxicated. I clung to her, asking what was wrong, but she laughed and admitted what she'd done. I don't remember every detail, just my anger. I called a cab, went home, and sent her a voice note saying I never wanted to see her again. A week later, she called, blaming me for ruining her party because everyone found out what happened. I hung up without replying. Life went on without her. I met the love of my life, got engaged, married, and my sister wasn't invited or in contact. When I became pregnant, she sent me a message. She'd seen my Facebook post through a friend and said it made her realize family was most important. She apologized and begged for another chance. I was hesitant, but eventually agreed. We met at a brunch spot. She was polite and apologetic, but still drank 3 glasses of wine, showing she hadn't changed. She admitted alcohol was part of her life, but promised she'd never involve me in it again. After thinking it over, I agreed to let her back in. To my surprise, things went smoothly for a while. She respected my boundaries, never pressured me to drink, and stayed under control in my presence. Then last week, everything changed. She came over to meet my baby for the first time. I warned her she couldn't go near the baby if she'd been drinking. She said it wasn't a problem. I still felt uneasy, but trusted her. She arrived with 2 bottles of wine. We chatted pleasantly. Even my husband had a glass. I didn't drink. My sister finished nearly both bottles and was clearly drunk. When she asked to use the bathroom, I gave her directions, but after a few minutes went to check on her. She wasn't in the bathroom. She was in my bedroom, wasted, holding my baby. When she saw me, she panicked and tried to hand him back, but lost her balance and dropped him. He landed on the floor. I screamed and rushed to him. Thankfully, he hadn't fallen far. He was crying, but appeared uninjured. I handed him to my husband, dragged my sister downstairs, and told her she'd broken my one rule. She apologized repeatedly, but I called a taxi and sent her home, saying I never wanted to speak to her again. That turned out to be a mistake. She had done more than drop my baby. She had given him some of her wine, and he was now upstairs vomiting as my husband cried while calling the hospital. The next hours were a blur. The ambulance took us to the ER, where doctors confirmed alcohol poisoning. They ran tests while my husband and I paced, terrified. The staff worked quickly, but their serious expressions gave us no comfort. A social worker interviewed us, clearly suspicious of how our infant ingested alcohol. We felt treated like criminals while being the victims. I called Megan repeatedly, but she ignored me. She disappeared after the ambulance took us away, not even checking if Jackson was alive. This only confirmed she knew what she had done. After a night of tests, the doctors told us Jackson would recover. There was no permanent damage, but potential long-term risks, so we'd need follow-ups. Relief nearly buckled my knees. When we brought Jackson home, I was filled with anger. My sister had endangered my child's life and vanished. While Jackson napped, I drove to Megan's apartment on no sleep, determined to confront her. Her boyfriend, Thomas, answered, saying she hadn't come home and admitting she'd been drinking more than ever. He tried to defend her, but I cut him off, telling him both of them were enabling dangerous behavior. Before leaving, I made it clear, if either of them came near my family again, I'd call the police. At home, my husband and I agreed to cut her off permanently. We blocked her on everything, installed security cameras, and documented the entire incident for possible legal action. A week later, Megan posted a tearful, intoxicated video online claiming I was keeping her from her nephew out of spite. Relatives flooded me with messages accusing me of being harsh, believing her version over mine. She told them Jackson had just sipped her drink and that I was exaggerating. Seeing how easily family believed her was painful. Then we received a letter claiming she'd entered rehab and her therapist recommended family healing. She asked for visitation rights when she completed the program. We verified the facility. It didn't exist. Looking at my sleeping son, I wondered how my sister could endanger his life and then lie to manipulate her way back in. My husband wants a restraining order, but some relatives call us heartless for not forgiving her. I never thought motherhood would mean defending my child from my own sister. I called a friend, Jordan, who's a detective. He reviewed our evidence and said restraining orders require a documented pattern of behavior. I showed him the fake rehab letter, social posts, and drunken videos. He advised documenting everything and avoiding direct contact. We created a dedicated email to store all evidence. My husband installed more cameras. That night, our door camera caught Megan arriving at 11:30 p.m., drunk, with flowers and a teddy bear. She rang the bell repeatedly, left a note, and left. The flowers smelled of alcohol and cigarettes. I added it to our file and threw them away. The next day, I warned our pediatrician. Hours later, their office called. Someone claiming to be my sister had requested Jackson's medical records. When asked for my authorization, she hung up. I contacted Jordan again. He said it strengthened our case, but still wasn't enough for an emergency restraining order. He advised notifying Jackson's future daycare. We visited the daycare the next day. The manager said a woman matching Megan's description had come asking about enrollment, pretending to be registering her nephew. We immediately decided against that daycare and began looking for a nanny instead. Then, my mother invited us to Sunday dinner, promising Megan wouldn't be there. After discussing it, we agreed. At my parents' house, things seemed normal, until I heard my sister's laugh from the kitchen. She walked in, holding a glass of wine, smiling. I picked up Jackson and left immediately. My husband stayed behind to confront my parents. When he came home, he told me they had set it up, hoping to force reconciliation. He also learned Megan had been living with them for weeks. I texted my parents, telling them we needed space, and blocked them. For days, things were quiet. Jackson thrived. Then one Thursday, I took him grocery shopping. In the produce section, I felt someone watching. Megan was at the end of the aisle pretending to shop. Our eyes met and she looked away. I abandoned my cart, secured Jackson in the car, and drove home. Once there, I had my first panic attack. I called my husband at work, barely able to speak. He came home immediately to find me still shaking. Thankfully, Jackson was napping peacefully in his bassinet when David finally spoke. "We need legal help," he said once I'd calmed down. "This is stalking." The next day, we met with Jordan again. He agreed we should pursue a restraining order more aggressively. After reviewing our notes, he explained our options. For a restraining order, the court usually looks for threats or clear harassment, Jordan said. Following you in a grocery store is troubling. But it's hard to prove intent. Judges want to see a pattern that would make a reasonable person fear for their safety. "So there's nothing we can do?" David asked, frustration obvious. "I didn't say that," Jordan replied. "Document everything: times, dates, places. Set up more cameras. If she keeps showing up, that builds your case. And don't respond to her attempts at contact. Even one reply can be used to argue you welcomed the communication." We left Jordan's office with a plan. Document thoroughly, avoid all contact, and build a case. It wasn't the immediate answer we wanted, but it was something. Over the next week, Megan escalated. She created new email accounts to bypass our blocks, sent daily messages about her recovery, and left voicemails begging for just 5 minutes with Jackson. At first, the tone was sympathetic, but it quickly shifted into guilt trips. "I know you're trying to protect Jackson," one voicemail said, "but do you want him growing up without knowing his aunt who loves him? Don't you remember how much you loved Aunt Patty as a kid?" I saved everything without replying. Her tone gradually shifted from pleading to demanding. "I understand why you're upset" became, "You're being unreasonable and you can't keep him from me forever." 2 weeks after the grocery store incident, our nanny Jessica told us something unsettling. While taking Jackson for a walk, she noticed the same car circling the block 3 times. She couldn't see the driver, but was concerned enough to head home. "I'm probably overthinking," Jessica admitted. "But with everything you've told me, I didn't want to risk it." We thanked her and decided to add a GPS tracker to the stroller. It felt absurd, but Jackson's safety came first. The next day, I got a call from Dakota, a childhood friend who still had occasional contact with Megan. "I don't want to scare you," Dakota said, "but Megan asked me odd questions, like what time you usually put the baby down and whether you still hide a spare key under the planter." I tried to keep my voice steady. "And what did you say?" "Nothing. I told her I didn't know. She said she wanted to leave a surprise for Jackson, but it felt wrong. I thought you should know." I thanked Dakota and immediately called a locksmith. We changed all the locks, reset the alarm codes, and secured every window. That night, David and I barely slept, taking turns checking on Jackson. Around 2 a.m., David nudged me awake. "There's a car parked across the street, been there for over an hour." Through the blinds, I recognized Megan's hatchback. Someone sat inside, watching our house. David pulled on jeans. "I'm going out there." "Be careful," I warned, phone in hand. I watched from the window as David approached. The headlights flashed on, but he kept walking. After a tense exchange, the car pulled away. It was her, David confirmed when he came back. She said she was making sure we were safe. When I mentioned calling the police, She drove off. The next morning, we returned to Jordan with this new evidence. He agreed it was enough for a temporary restraining order. That same day, the court granted it. Megan was now legally barred from coming within 500 feet of us, our home, or Jackson's doctor's office. For a week, things were quiet. No messages, no sightings. We started to think the order had worked. Then, one evening, while scrolling Instagram, I stumbled across a mommy blog account called Antim's Adventures. It featured dozens of stolen photos of Jackson, with captions like, "My precious nephew," and "Can't wait for our next cuddle." Digging further, I found 3 more fake accounts on different platforms. Some even fabricated stories of babysitting him. I spent hours reporting the accounts and locking down our privacy settings. David called Jordan, but he explained that since Megan wasn't contacting us directly, the accounts didn't technically violate the restraining order. The stress was wearing us down. David suggested therapy to help us cope. We booked a session with Dr. William, a family trauma specialist. He validated our fears and told us our reactions were normal. Halfway through the session, David's phone rang. It was our neighbor. His face drained as he listened. "We need to go. Someone broke into our house." Police were already there when we arrived. Nothing was stolen, but in Jackson's nursery sat a large gift basket. Inside were baby clothes soaked in red wine and a card signed, "Love, Auntie Megan." The message read, "Since you won't let me see him, I thought I'd send something for him to remember me by. Blood is thicker than water, but wine leaves a stronger stain." The police logged it as evidence, but said since nothing was stolen or destroyed, it was just added to the case file. They suggested more cameras, or even a dog. That night, I turned to David. "We can't stay here. She knows where we live. The police can't stop her until after she does something." He agreed. "My parents have been asking us to visit. Maybe Lakeside will be safer." We packed, installed new cameras with phone alerts, and quietly left for his parents' home. They welcomed us and converted their office into a nursery. Their gated community gave us some relief. For 3 days, I finally slept. Jackson seemed calmer too. On the 4th day, I got a text from an unknown number. "Nice place. The garden looks peaceful." My blood went cold. Somehow, she had found us again. David's father, Michael, a retired security specialist, stepped in. He coached us. No routines, very schedules, no social media, even private updates. We followed his rules carefully. But Megan started calling David's relatives, telling them I was keeping her from her only nephew. We had to explain everything to extended family who'd never even met her. Meanwhile, our court date for the permanent order was near. We gathered hospital records, police reports, photos, witness statements, everything. Jordan felt confident. But the day before court, we learned Megan had hired a well-known attorney. We had no idea how she could afford him, but it made the case more complicated. In court, I explained calmly but firmly how Megan endangered Jackson with alcohol, stalked us, broke into our home, and harassed us. Our documentation was thorough. Her lawyer painted a different picture, a struggling alcoholic unfairly punished while seeking recovery. He claimed I exaggerated her behavior out of jealousy and that cutting her off from family was cruel. The judge delayed a decision for 30 days, but kept the temporary order in place. As we left, my mother appeared. Looking tired, she asked, "Can we talk?" She said Megan had expressed suicidal thoughts and begged me to drop the restraining order for the sake of family. "Mom," I said, "she gave alcohol to my baby. She broke into our house. She stalks us. And you want me to forgive that?" She looked down. We're just trying to help both daughters. How did she know we were at David's parents' house? I demanded. Her guilty look told me everything. She admitted she had told Megan. I walked away. Don't contact us again until you decide which daughter's safety matters to you. Later that night, David's mother handed me a letter delivered by hand. It was from Thomas, Megan's ex. He warned us about her obsession, how she had a wall covered in photos of Jackson, and talked about rescuing him. We turned the letter over to Jordan, who added it to our case. The night before the next hearing, Megan tried scaling the backyard fence. The cameras caught everything. It was undeniable proof. In court, her attorney claimed she was now seeking treatment. She appeared contrite, but when it was my turn, I spoke honestly. I wish her well in recovery, but she gave alcohol to my infant, broke into our home, and followed us to another city. This isn't punishment, it's protection. The judge agreed. He granted a permanent restraining order. Megan had to stay at least 1,000 feet away for 3 years. For a brief moment, we felt safe. But that same day, Megan emailed from a new account. No piece of paper will keep me from what's mine. Police went to her apartment, only to find she had already moved out. Inside, they found empty bottles, maps of our routines, and a wall of Jackson's photos. 3 tense days passed, with no sign of her. Then, Jessica called from the park. She'd seen Megan following them at a distance. David rushed over, and security caught her at the gate. Police took her into custody. For the first time in weeks, I held Jackson close and finally allowed myself to believe we might actually be safe. Pending a bail hearing, and given her repeated violations, there was a strong chance Megan would remain in custody, at least for the time being. We thanked the officers sincerely for their quick response. That night, I finally slept soundly, with Jackson's bassinet pulled close to our bed, and the relief of knowing Megan couldn't reach us. The next morning, David and I began serious discussions about our future. Should we return home eventually? Should we move to another city altogether? How would we handle family gatherings, knowing my parents had proven unreliable at setting boundaries? We didn't yet have answers, but one fact was certain. Megan's actions had permanently changed our lives. We would never again take our family's safety for granted. Whether Megan stayed in custody or was released, we knew we had to face the future together, always prioritizing our son. Do you think she'll ever realize what she's done? I asked David later that evening as we sat on his parents' porch, the sunset painting the sky while Jackson napped inside. I don't know, he said honestly, but it's not our job to help her understand. Our job is to protect our son, and that's exactly what we'll do. I nodded, leaning against him. The road ahead wouldn't be simple, but for the first time since Megan had given alcohol to our baby, I felt we might find a way forward. The bail hearing was scheduled for the next morning. David insisted on attending so the judge understood the seriousness of the situation. His mother offered to stay with me and Jackson, which was a relief. I wasn't ready to see Megan face to face. When David returned hours later, his expression showed both relief and concern. She got bail, he said, sitting heavily beside me. But there are conditions. She has to wear an ankle monitor, undergo weekly drug and alcohol testing, and stay at least 1,000 feet away from us. How did she seem? I asked, bouncing Jackson on my knee. Detached. Her lawyer did most of the talking. The only time she reacted was when alcohol monitoring was mentioned. She actually argued with her lawyer about it. That didn't surprise me. Even now, alcohol still came first for her. We stayed at David's parents' house longer, unwilling to fully trust the monitoring system. Jackson thrived under the extra attention from his grandparents. 2 weeks later, Jordan called with updates. As part of her bail conditions, Megan underwent a full substance abuse evaluation, he explained. It revealed more than alcoholism. The psychologist found concerning personality disorder traits, which might explain her fixation on your son. What does that mean for us? I asked. She's been ordered into dual treatment for both alcohol addiction and her mental health. It's actually positive. She'll get more comprehensive care than just monitoring her drinking. The news brought mixed emotions. It validated what we'd suspected, but a diagnosis didn't erase the damage or guarantee lasting change. A month later, we received a formal letter from Megan's therapist requesting a supervised family session. The letter emphasized it was voluntary and would occur in a controlled setting. David and I consulted our own therapist, Dr. William. I'd advise against it for now, he said. Megan needs to show sustained progress before family involvement is useful, and even then, start with just you two adults, not Jackson. We politely declined, and Megan's therapist responded with understanding, assuring us they'd continue working with her individually. Around this time, my parents reached out again. My father called David's phone, knowing I wouldn't answer. "Please, just listen," he said when David put him on speaker. "Your mother and I have reflected a lot. We've spoken with Megan's doctors too. We realize now we've been enabling her, excusing her behavior instead of holding her accountable." "That's nice to admit, but it's late," I replied sharply. "We know," my mother said quietly. "We failed both of you. We failed to protect you. And we failed her by not getting her help. But this time feels different. Her doctors say she's making real progress." I sighed. "Even if that's true, Jackson's safety comes first. That includes over your feelings, hers, and even mine." There was silence before my father said softly, "We understand that." Truly, I allowed them updates about Jackson through photos and email, but made clear that if anything reached Megan, all communication would end. 6 months passed in relative peace. Reports from Megan's treatment facility confirmed compliance. Therapy sessions, sobriety verified by testing, no violations. We returned to our home after installing an advanced security system. Then a letter arrived from Megan, delivered through her therapist. In it, she acknowledged her actions without excuses, expressed remorse, and committed to recovery. She didn't ask for forgiveness or access to Jackson, just recognition of her harm. I reread it several times, searching for hidden manipulation. Finding none, I showed David. "What do you think?" he asked. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "It feels sincere, but we've been fooled before." I'm not ready to reply, but I won't throw it away either. We acknowledged receipt, but refused direct contact. Over time, her therapist shared updates of her continued progress. Still, we held firm. No contact until at least 1 year of stability. Some family members called us harsh, but they hadn't lived what we had. 14 months after Megan's arrest, her therapist proposed a carefully managed meeting. Anxiety overwhelmed me at the thought. David suggested a video session first. During the call, Megan looked healthier, clearer, more present. She spoke openly about recovery, took responsibility, and explained her unhealthy fixation on Jackson. "I hope someday I can be an aunt to him," she said, "but I understand that may never happen." I responded firmly. "Any relationship moving forward will be between us as sisters, not involving Jackson." She nodded. "That's completely reasonable." Her willingness to accept boundaries was more reassuring than any apology. After several video sessions, we cautiously agreed to meet in person. When she arrived, she offered a gift for Jackson. We discussed no gifts, I reminded her. You're right, she said, setting it aside. Old habits. I should have respected that boundary. Her response gave me more confidence in her progress. My parents, however, pushed us to accelerate reconciliation. It's been 2 years, my mother argued. Don't you think it's time to be a family again? No, I said firmly. Trust takes years to rebuild. Rushing proves you still don't understand. Eventually, they stopped pressing. By the 2-year mark, we maintained a cautious relationship. Megan attended occasional gatherings, always supervised, always sober. I remained vigilant, but therapy helped me manage the anxiety. When Jackson turned 4, we hosted a party. Megan attended, bringing a modest, pre-approved gift. Later, she pulled me aside. Today is 3 years sober for me, she said, and I wanted to thank you. Your boundaries forced me to face my issues. If you'd let me back easily, I might not have changed. I simply nodded. I'm glad you're doing better. That day, I realized we'd reached a new balance. Not closeness, but a workable respect. Megan now has 4 years of sobriety. She moved to a nearby town, working in addiction counseling, and respects all boundaries. She never pushes for unsupervised time with Jackson and checks before sending gifts. Jackson knows a simplified version of the story, that Aunt Megan was very sick when he was little, made bad choices, and couldn't see him for a while. He accepts it simply. I've accepted that I'll never completely relax when she's around him. But the sharp fear is gone, replaced with cautious vigilance. David and I even discussed having another child. Though the idea triggered memories, he reminded me, we're stronger now. We can't let the past control our future. I still keep Megan's first letter from treatment, not as forgiveness, but as both reminder and safeguard. Trust, once broken, is never the same. But families evolve, shaped by hardship. Ours is stronger for surviving it. People sometimes ask if I've forgiven my sister. The truth is complicated. I've acknowledged her growth, but forgiveness implies forgetting. And as a mother, I can't forget. Instead, I've found peace through boundaries, expectations, and actions, not words. In real life, endings aren't neat. Sometimes the best resolution is not reconciliation, but clarity. Protecting your child is the quiet, daily form of heroism. If I've learned anything, it's this: always trust your instincts as a parent. A relationship with a child is a privilege, not a right. Those who endanger them forfeit that privilege. I hope Megan's progress continues. I hope her work helping others fulfills her. But my priority will never change: protecting my family, setting boundaries, and ensuring my son grows up safe. It's not a fairy tale ending, but it's real. And in the messy world of family and addiction, reality is all we have.